Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you get up to speed on complex topics fast.
That's right.
You sent us the Global Isononyl Acrylate Market Report 2025. So our mission today,
Simple, really.
get a solid handle on this market, where it is now, where it's heading, but without getting lost in, all the complex data.
Exactly. Think of this as the highlights reel. This report, it's packed. Market size, growth rates, applications like adhesives, paints.
Regional breakdowns, drivers, challenges, trends, the whole 9 yards.
We'll pull out the key stuff for you and make it digestible.
Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah.
And one number jumped out right away. The report sees this market hitting USD 1,468 million in 2025.
That's the projection.
And then climbing to almost USD 220 million by 2033. That's quite a leap.
It is indeed a significant growth curve.
All right, first things first. For anyone not familiar, what is isonyl acrylate? Break it down for us.
Sure. So basically, it's a specialty chemical. Its formula is C12H2O2. And technically, it's what we call an acrylate monomer.
Okay.
A building block, essentially. It's made by reacting acrylic acid with isonyl alcohol. That process is called esterification.
Got it. A chemical building block. So what makes it special? Why is it in demand?
It really comes down to its properties. It gives products exceptional flexibility, which is a big one, and really strong adhesion, stickiness.
Flexibility and stickiness.
All right. That's partly thanks to its low glass transition temperature. Basically, it stays flexible and sticky even when it gets colder. Plus, it's very durable and holds up really well against weather.
Durable too. Sounds useful. Where do we actually find this stuff being used?
Well, you'll find it a lot in pressure-sensitive adhesives. Think about the sticky stuff on tapes, labels, protective films.
Okay. Like packing tape or labels on products.
Exactly, those kinds of things. It's also a key ingredient in many paints and varnishes. And interestingly, it can be used to adjust how thick or thin elastic paints and sealants are their rheological properties.
So it affects how they flow.
Precisely. Helps get the right consistency for application. It's usually a liquid itself. And adding it just helps products perform better and last longer across a whole range of industries.
Makes sense. Better sticking, longer lasting. So let's circle back to those numbers. USD 1,468 million in 2025, heading towards 2,120 million by 2033. You mentioned growth. What's the rate look like?
The report pegs the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, at 4.70% for that period, 2025 to 2033.
4.7%. Pretty healthy. What's pushing that growth? Which applications are really driving demand?
Two main areas stand out: adhesives and sealants, and paints and coatings.
Okay, let's take adhesives and sealants first. The report said this is the biggest slice of the pie right now.
That's correct. It holds the largest market share currently. And that's because it's used so widely. Think packaging, automotive manufacturing, construction.
All big sectors.
Absolutely. Those pressure-sensitive adhesives we mentioned, they're crucial in packaging for films, tapes, labels. There's constant demand for packaging that's flexible, but also tough and long-lasting.
And construction.
Big user, too. For bonding different materials together, for sealing joints and gaps, it's a go-to material.
Okay, so adhesives and sealants are the current leader. But you also mentioned paints and coatings. The report highlighted this as the fastest growing segment.
Yes, that's a key finding. While adhesives are bigger overall right now, paints and coatings are expanding more rapidly.
Why is that? What's it adding to paints?
It really enhances performance. Adding isonyl acrylate makes paints and coatings more flexible, tougher, and crucially, more resistant to weather damage.
So durability again.
Exactly. This makes it really valuable for high-performance coatings, whether that's, a decorative paint for a house that needs to look good for years, or a protective coating on a bridge or industrial equipment.
And I guess the construction boom helps here too.
Definitely. The report points to the expanding building sector, especially in developing countries. More urbanization, more infrastructure projects. That all means more demand for durable, high-quality coatings.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look at the map. How does this market break down regionally? Starting with North America, the report says it's the biggest market.
It is, yes. Currently holding the largest share, over 37% in 2025. That translates to about USD 543 million.
Over a third of the global market. Wow. But the growth rate is a bit lower.
Right. The projected PGR for North America is around 3.5% through 2033. Still growing, but not as fast as some other regions.
What's keeping it at the top then?
Several things. There's strong demand for greener adhesives and coatings, especially in automotive and construction. Environmental regulations are quite strict there, particularly around VOCs.
Volatile organic compounds.
Exactly. So low VOC formulations are preferred. Plus, North America has a large mature packaging market that continues to need these kinds of adhesives.
And within North America, how do the countries stack up?
The U.S. is the giant, naturally, around USD 428 million in 2025, with a 3.3% CAGR that's driven mainly by consumer goods and packaging. Canada's next, about USD 65 million, but with a slightly higher growth rate, 4.3%. That's partly linked to demand for lightweight materials in the auto industry.
Interesting. And Mexico?
Mexico is around USD 49 million, growing at 4.0%. The driver there is mainly increasing industrial activity overall.
All right, let's hop across the pond to Europe. What's the picture there?
Europe's a significant player too. It accounts for over 29% of the market in 2025, valued at roughly USD 426 million.
And its growth?
The projected EAGR for Europe overall is 3.8%, so slightly higher than North America.
Which countries are key in Europe?
Well, the report breaks it down quite a bit.
It really shows how diverse the drivers are, even within one continent. Okay, now for the region, everyone's talking about growth-wise. Asia-Pacific, APAC. The report flagged this as the one to watch.
Absolutely. This is where the highest growth is expected. APAC holds about 24% market share in 2025, around USD 352 million.
Okay, smaller share than North America or Europe currently.
But its projected CAGR is a striking 7.4% between 2025 and 2033. That's way above the global average.
7.4%. Wow. What's fueling that explosion?
It's really rapid industrialization and urbanization, huge growth in the packaging, automotive, and construction sectors in countries like China, Japan, and India. Massive infrastructure projects are underway.
Right. New roads, airports, buildings.
Exactly. All needing vast amounts of adhesives, sealants, and durable coatings. Plus, the region has a strong manufacturing base, often with lower production costs, which also helps boost demand and supply. The report mentions government investments in China and India specifically driving demand for long-lasting paints and sealants.
Can you give us some specifics for the key APAC countries?
Sure. China leads the way in APAC, market size around USD 148 million, growing at 6.9%. Huge infrastructure spending there is a major factor.
And India. You mentioned it too.
India's market size is smaller, about USD 35 million in 2025, but its CAGR is projected at an incredible 9.3%.
9.3%. That's huge. What's driving that specifically?
It's a combination of booming construction activity and a rapidly expanding packaging industry meeting the needs of a growing middle class.
Fascinating. What about other major players?
Japan and South Korea have sizable markets too, with KGRs around 5.9% and 6.5% respectively. And Southeast Asia as a whole is also growing very fast, around 8.2% CAGR. It really paints a picture of a very dynamic region.
No kidding. That APAC growth is definitely something to keep an eye on. What about the remaining regions? South America, Middle East, Africa, how do they fit in?
They represent smaller shares of the market, but still show growth potential. South America holds just over 3.8% share, that's about USD 56 million, with a projected CGR of 5.0%.
So growing faster than North America or Europe?
Yes, driven by demand for adhesives and sealants, plus building and packing activity, especially in Brazil and Argentina.
Okay, and the Middle East?
Around 4% share, close to USD 59 million, and a 5.2% CAGR. The key driver there is the need for more sophisticated adhesives in construction and automotive, particularly in places like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Turkey.
Right, lots of construction there too. Africa?
Africa has the smallest share, about 2.2%, roughly USD 32 million, and the projected growth is lower, around 1.0% CAGR.
Only 1%. Why so low compared to others?
Well, growth is still happening, driven by urbanization, expanding packaging needs, and some infrastructure development, especially in Nigeria and South Africa. South Africa also sees some demand for eco-friendly products, but the overall scale and pace are just slower compared to, say, APAC right now.
Understood. So we got the size, the growth, the regional variations. Let's dig into the why a bit more. The report outlined key market drivers. What's really pushing this market forward globally?
A major one we touched on briefly is the growing demand for waterborne coatings.
Right, the eco-friendly aspect.
Exactly. They use water as the solvent instead of chemicals, so they release fewer VOCs. This fits perfectly with stricter environmental laws and the general push for green building and sustainable manufacturing, especially in automotive and construction. Even packaging is shifting towards waterborne options.
So regulations and sustainability are actually driving demand for products using isonyl acrylate, provided it's in these newer formulations.
In many cases, yes, because it helps these waterborne coatings perform well. The other big driver is technology.
Technology in what sense?
Advancements in how isonyl acrylate itself is produced. Things like continuous production processes, better catalysts. They're making manufacturing more efficient, bringing down costs.
Ah, so cheaper and better quality.
Essentially, yes. Higher quality, more consistent product at a potentially lower cost. That makes it more attractive for use in paints, adhesives, sealants, boosting demand further.
Okay, so positive drivers. But every market has its challenges. What did the report flag as potential restraints or hurdles?
Well, somewhat ironically, the same environmental regulations that drive demand for waterborne systems can also be a restraint,
How so?
because managing VOCs, even reduced levels, still requires investment. Manufacturers need pollution control tech, sustainable practices. That adds to operating costs, particularly under strict regulations like those in Europe and North America.
So it's a double-edged sword. What else?
Competition from alternatives is growing. There's increasing interest in bio-based acrylates and other substitutes that are seen as even greener. That puts pressure on traditional isonyl acrylate.
The push for bio-alternatives. Makes sense. Anything else?
The report also notes that the production process itself is quite complex and can have high upfront manufacturing costs. This might make it harder for smaller companies or new entrants to compete effectively.
Right, barriers to entry. So navigating regulations, competition from greener alternatives, and production costs are the main headwinds. What about overall market trends? Beyond the drivers and restraints, what broader shifts are shaping the landscape?
One key trend is just continuous improvement in coating systems generally. Companies are always innovating to make coatings that perform better, last longer, are easier to apply.
And that helps isonyl acrylate.
It does, because it's often a key ingredient in achieving those enhanced properties. So as coating technology advances, it tends to pull demand for high-quality raw materials like isonyl acrylate along with it. We're seeing better formulations, better application techniques.
Makes sense. More sophisticated end products need sophisticated ingredients. What's another major trend?
The growth in specific high-tech industries, aerospace and automotive in particular.
Why them specifically?
They have really demanding requirements for coatings and sealants. Think extreme temperatures, protection against corrosion, durability. Isonyl acrylate helps deliver that performance. So as these industries expand and innovate, their need for these kinds of advanced materials grows.
Okay, so aerospace and automotive are pulling demand. Now let's talk about the companies involved. Who are the main players in this market? What does the competitive scene look like?
It's definitely a competitive space. The report describes it as highly competitive, actually. You've got a mix of big global chemical companies and more specialized regional players.
Can you name a few?
Sure, the report lists quite a few. Big names like Huntsman, Solvay, Sasol, Sabic. Then regional players like India Glycols, Osaka Organic Chemical in Japan, several Chinese manufacturers like CMFC and FUCC. It's a long list.
A crowded field. Did the report highlight any specific strategies or recent moves by these companies?
It gave a couple of examples. It mentioned Osaka Organic Chemical Industry back in March 2022, noting their focus on high-grade isonyl and acrylate, specifically for sealants and coatings, and emphasizing their sustainable production methods. They're a key supplier, especially in APAC.
Okay, focusing on quality and sustainability.
Right. And more recently, March 2024, it highlighted BOC Sciences as a major supplier to consumer goods, auto, and construction sectors. Their focus was noted as providing cost-effective and adaptable solutions.
Tailoring solutions to customer needs.
Exactly. The report also mentions there are second and third tier companies, plus startups, playing a role too, though you'd need the full report for details on those.
So a very active and competitive market overall.
Yeah.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's try to boil it down. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive into the isonyl acrylate market report?
Okay, key points. 1, it's a significant global market, approaching USD 1.5 billion in 2025, and projected to grow steadily to over USD 2.1 billion by 2033.
Driven by?
Driven mainly by rising demand for waterborne coatings, thanks to environmental pressures, and also by ongoing improvements in production technology making it more efficient.
Got it. And the main uses?
Adhesives and sealants are the biggest application area right now, but paints and coatings is where the fastest growth is happening.
And regionally?
North America has the biggest slice currently, but Asia Pacific is set for the most rapid growth in the coming years, really powering the global expansion.
Excellent summary. Which brings us to our final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given everything we've discussed, especially the increasing focus on sustainability and stricter environmental rules, how do you think that balance might shift? The balance between traditional isonyl acrylate, made the way it usually is, and these emerging bio-based alternatives.
That's a really interesting question.
How might that play out in the next decade? And what could that mean for the different industries, packaging, auto, construction, and the different regions we've looked at? Something to ponder.
Definitely food for thought, the push and pull between performance, cost, and sustainability.
Absolutely. Well, if this has piqued your interest, obviously the full Global Isonyl Acrylate Market Report 2025 has all the granular detail. But hopefully this gave you a clear overview. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.